Wait, did you just say he doesn't even know you're married? That was the first sentence I heard when I sat down with my croissant and chamomile tea. It was loud enough to slice through the clatter of plates and espresso steam, but soft enough that I wasn't supposed to hear it. At least, that's what she thought. She didn't see me walk in. Why would she? I wasn't even meant to be in that neighborhood. Our internet had gone out at the apartment, and I needed somewhere quiet to review a pitch deck before 10:30. I didn't know she'd chosen the same cafe for her morning team sync. I recognized the back of her head first, the slight tilt she always does when she's pretending to listen, but already has a rebuttal loaded. I was going to wave, maybe surprise her with a coffee. Then I saw the man sitting across from her, not her boss, not her coworker, not even someone I'd seen in her LinkedIn connections. He was too familiar. His left arm rested along the back of her seat like it lived there. His knee touched hers without either of them adjusting. His smile came easy, like it had practiced on her face 100 times already. And then I heard her say, "Honestly, I think I just forgot what it feels like to be wanted. Like, really wanted. Not tolerated, not managed." I should have stood up. I should have walked out. But I didn't. I stayed. I stayed because I couldn't believe the woman who shares my bed was sitting 3 tables away, talking like I was a burden she had to carry, instead of a man she once said forever to. For 22 minutes, I sat behind a fake fern, pretending to read emails while my entire life unraveled in stereo. They joked about the way I fold my socks like a librarian. She said my voice has a whine to it now. He asked if I still do that little checklist thing before bed. She laughed. She laughed like none of those things had ever belonged to her, too. I learned that they meet on Tuesdays, that they started with just drinks, that it wasn't planned, but neither of them seemed all that sorry. I found out she's been using our marriage like a decoy, something to hide behind until she figures out what she really wants. Spoiler, it's not me. But here's the part that still haunts me. Keeps me up even now as I write this from a motel room, with a buzzing ceiling light and air that smells like bleach and broken promises. Right before I left, I heard her say, "He's not dangerous. He won't do anything. He'll just disappear." And they both sipped their coffee, like I was already gone. I didn't go back to work after the cafe. I told myself I was just taking a walk to clear my head, but somehow my feet followed her. I watched from a block away as she stepped out with him, all smiles and soft glances, like they'd just closed a deal. He held the door open for her like a gentleman, not the kind you marry, but the kind who ruins a marriage with practiced grace. They didn't kiss, they didn't hold hands, they didn't need to. The betrayal was already done. The way she turned her face toward him when he talked, how she tilted her head like she was drinking him in, it wasn't casual. That wasn't a just talking posture. That was intimacy built brick by brick behind my back. She turned the corner toward her office like nothing was wrong with the world, while I stood there feeling like I'd just watched my own funeral and no one bothered to attend. I waited 5 minutes. Then I followed. Not because I'm some kind of stalker, because I couldn't stop myself. Because some part of me hoped I was wrong, that I'd misheard, that there was a reasonable explanation that didn't involve months of deception and secret Tuesdays. But when I reached the corner, he wasn't walking away. He was still with her, waiting outside her building. They weren't in a rush to part. And then, she touched his chest. Flat palm, centered, like something out of a goodbye scene in a movie. He leaned in close and said something I couldn't hear. She didn't respond right away. She just nodded, a small, slow nod, then turned and went inside. He stayed there for another minute, checking his phone, smiling. Then he walked off, not toward the train, not toward a parking lot, back toward the cafe. And that's when it hit me. He didn't just happen to be nearby. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a loop, a routine, a ritual. I didn't go home that night. I told Marla I had a late dinner with a partner from out of town. She said, "No problem, babe," and added a heart emoji like nothing had changed. She even asked me to pick up oat milk on the way back. I sat in my car for 4 hours with the milk sweating on the passenger seat. I just stared at the apartment lights and tried to calculate the exact day our marriage ended. I couldn't find one. It wasn't a dramatic event. It was a slow disassembly. One drawer at a time, by midnight I realized something horrible. I didn't want to confront her yet. I wanted to know more. I needed to see how far the rot went. And so, I made a plan. I didn't sleep that night, not a minute. I lay in bed beside her, our shoulders barely touching, my eyes fixed on the ceiling fan above us that clicked with every rotation like a metronome counting down to some unseen explosion. She curled away from me, knees to her chest, breathing slow and steady, like someone who felt safe. I watched her like she was a stranger sleeping in a costume I recognized. At 3:12 a.m., she mumbled something about Chesapeake again. Her voice was soft, nearly drowned by the fan. She didn't say it to me. It was just drifting out of her half-sleep, unfiltered. It froze me cold. That was the same place she told her team they'd been brainstorming strategy last month. I remember because I packed her damn suitcase. The next morning, I started looking. Not openly. I'm not stupid. I've never so much as snooped through her purse in our 6 years together. But things change when you hear the woman you love talk about you like a prop in her play. I started small. Browser history on the shared iPad. Nothing unusual. Instagram, all vanilla. Our dog, her niece, some salads. But something kept gnawing at me. She was too careful. She knew better than to leave tracks where someone like me could follow. I used to think that meant she was private. Now I understood. She was protected. It wasn't until the following Friday that I found the first real crack in the wall. She was in the shower. I was looking for nail clippers. Her nightstand drawer was half open, and something buzzed. Not her regular phone. That was on the bathroom counter playing a podcast about criminal tax reform. No, this was a second phone, wedged beneath a stack of receipts in an old eyeglass case. It was sleek, new, no case, no stickers. And when I picked it up, the lock screen lit up with a message that made the floor fall out from under me. Same time Tuesday? No name, just a number. And no, I didn't unlock it. I didn't know the code, but I didn't need to. That one line, it confirmed everything. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't one mistake. This was scheduled. This was systematic. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, took a breath that nearly broke me in half, and smiled like a fool when she walked out of the bathroom in a towel and kissed me on the cheek like she wasn't turning me into a ghost behind my own walls. I didn't say a word, not then, because now I had confirmation. And once you have confirmation, the next question is, how far does it go? The phone changed everything, but not in the way I expected. I didn't blow up. I didn't accuse her. I didn't demand explanations or cry in the kitchen like the version of me she jokes about behind my back. No, I did something worse, something that scared even me. I got calm, cold, calculated. That Saturday morning, she left early for a strategy off-site. The same story she told 2 weeks ago. Same name, same hotel, same vague excuse about a facilitator from Baltimore. I helped her carry her overnight bag to the car, kissed her, goodbye, and watched her taillights vanish around the corner. Then I went inside, made myself a cup of tea, sat down at the kitchen island, and Googled every hotel in Chesapeake with meeting spaces. She said they were staying at the Eastbury Inn, a waterfront place with modern rooms and nautical wallpaper that looked like it had something to prove. I called the front desk pretending to be her assistant, told them I needed to confirm a reservation for Marla Denning. The woman put me on hold, then came back and said there was no guest by that name, not under Marla, not under her company either. I said thank you and hung up. That's when I packed a bag. I didn't have a plan. I just had gas in the tank and a need to see the lie up close. It's a 2-hour drive, but it felt like 12. Every exit ramp looked like a chance to turn back, to just go home and pretend. But the problem with hearing the truth, even just a sliver, is that pretending gets harder by the mile. When I reached Chesapeake, I didn't go to the Eastbury first. I drove past it, circled around the marina, and parked in the shadow of a crumbling boat repair warehouse across the street. I watched the hotel's side entrance like I was waiting for an informant. At 4:17 p.m., I saw her. She came out of a silver rental car in jeans and a linen blouse I hadn't seen before. She wasn't alone. He was with her. Same guy from the Café. Same too clean jawline. They were laughing about something. I could see it in the way she touched her hair and leaned into him like gravity was stronger near him. They walked past the hotel entirely. Took a side path down toward the marina boardwalk, where no one from her office would ever think to look. And suddenly, it all made sense. She hadn't lied about the location. She'd used it, like camouflage. That's when I got out of the car. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I just needed to be closer to the truth, even if it burned. I followed them, slowly, at a distance, through alleys that smelled like salt and rust, past gift shops with postcards of sunsets she never sent me. They stopped at a seafood restaurant with a crooked neon sign and outdoor seating under string lights. They took a corner table near the edge of the water, just far enough to be hidden from the street. I couldn't hear them, but I could see enough. Their hands touched across the table, hers first. She reached for him. I don't think I blinked for 10 minutes. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I stayed until the drinks arrived. I watched her laugh at something he said, and then look away toward the water, like she was free, like I was already erased. Then I turned and left. Drove to a cheap motel off the highway, and sat there in the dark with the curtains drawn, wondering how many times this had happened while I was back home, reheating soup and vacuuming the stairs. And that's when I made the second decision. If she could lead this double life, so could I. She got home Sunday evening, just before sunset. I watched from the living room window as her Uber dropped her off at the curb, her suitcase balanced on her thigh as she fumbled with her phone. She didn't look around. She didn't hesitate. She walked through that door like she hadn't stepped into someone else's arms 24 hours earlier. I didn't say anything, just smiled, asked how the retreat went. She gave me the same canned response I'd heard the last time. Lots of brainstorming, lots of whiteboards, lots of team realignment jargon. Then she kissed me on the forehead, said she was exhausted, and went to unpack. I watched her move around our bedroom, folding the same blouse I saw her wear with him by the water. I noticed how easily she slipped back into this version of herself. The wife, the homeowner, the woman who texts me grocery lists and reminds me about my blood pressure pills. It was terrifying how practiced she was, how polished. That night, while she slept, deeply, peacefully, I sat in the kitchen and wrote out everything I knew. A timeline, dates, phone logs, patterns. It wasn't for court. It wasn't for revenge. It was just for me. Because if I didn't write it down, I'd start questioning my own memory. That's the thing about being lied to by someone you trust. It warps your sense of reality. You start editing your own past to make their present make sense. But not anymore. I started calling it the ledger. I kept it in a locked file on a USB drive hidden in an old electronics box in the back of the closet. She never goes near that stuff. She's never been interested in cables or chargers or anything that doesn't come in an Apple box. On Tuesday morning, I pretended to forget my keys. I doubled back home after she had left for work and waited. And just like clockwork, at 10:17 a.m., her secret phone buzzed in the nightstand. I didn't touch it this time. I didn't need to. I just noted the pattern. It always happened on Tuesdays, mid-morning, like a meeting reminder that comes with butterflies. Later that day, I drove to her office building and waited in a rented car half a block down. I watched her leave for lunch at exactly 12:41 p.m. I followed her, slowly, like a shadow, like guilt. She didn't go to any restaurant. She took a left down Elm Street into a parking garage and came out on the other side in his car. He picked her up, like a routine, like something they've done dozens of times. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just watching an affair. I was watching a separate life. He drove her to a suburban townhouse in a neighborhood I'd never seen before. Too polished, too staged, like it was meant to exist outside of reality. They went inside, the door shut. The curtains were already drawn. I stayed in my car for 3 hours. I didn't move. I didn't call anyone. I just watched the stillness of that house and tried to understand how the woman I thought I knew could become a person who had 2 separate calendars, 2 separate worlds, 2 men who both thought they were hers. When they finally emerged, it was late afternoon. She looked flushed, not guilty, just content. Like she'd finished something important, like whatever happened inside didn't cost her a thing. I drove home and made dinner, chicken and rice, her favorite. She walked in at 6:15 p.m., gave me a kiss, and told me traffic was a nightmare. I smiled, handed her a glass of wine, and told her I missed her. And I meant it. That's the worst part. I never asked her about the townhouse. I didn't mention the car. I didn't confront her about the second phone or the texts or the missing hotel records. Instead, I played the part she wrote for me. The harmless husband, the one who buys oat milk and forgets anniversaries and couldn't possibly have the spine to follow her through the cracks in our life. I slipped back into that role so easily it scared even me. But I wasn't pretending for her benefit anymore. I was pretending so I could build something, a kind of pressure chamber, a maze of silence and suggestion. Because when someone is so sure they've outsmarted you, all it takes is a whisper to shake them. You don't need fireworks. You just need one flickering bulb in an otherwise perfect room. So, I started small. The first thing I did was move her second phone. Not far, just from the drawer to the laundry cabinet under the sink. It took her 3 days to mention it. When she did, it was casual. A soft little, "Hey, did you see my old work phone? I think I dropped it when I was sorting receipts." I told her I hadn't. She smiled and kissed me, said she probably left it in the car, but her eyes lingered on me for a second too long. A week later, I left a single rose on the front passenger seat of her car. I clipped it from the bush near our back gate, the one we planted our first summer here. I placed it gently on the seat with no note, no wrapper, nothing. Just the flower. That evening, she came inside with her keys clutched tight, her face pale and unreadable. She didn't say a word about it, but that night, while she thought I was asleep, I heard her in the kitchen, whispering into that second phone. He didn't say anything. Number nothing, just acting normal. Yes, I'm sure. No, it's not from you. Stop freaking out. She paused for a long time, then, "I'll keep watching." That was the moment it changed. She was watching me now. Not because she loved me, not even because she felt guilty, but because for the first time, she wasn't sure what I knew. I had become a variable in her little system. And variables, they ruin clean equations. The next morning, I left the front page of a newspaper on the kitchen table. It was a week old. The headline had nothing to do with anything relevant. Just an article about a local woman found dead after living a double life. I didn't point it out. I didn't even glance at it. But I saw her pause when she walked past. She didn't touch it. She just stared. Over dinner, she barely spoke, kept looking at her phone, picking at her food. I asked her about her day, and she mumbled something about contracts and stress and people not pulling their weight. I nodded, gave her my usual soft smile, and said, "Must be hard trying to manage everything at once." She froze. Just for a second. Not even a full pause. But I saw it, the tiniest flicker in her eyes. She was flinching now. Not from fear, from doubt. That's how you get in. You don't break the wall, you let it crack itself. I started calling it the soft war. The way I could shift the air in a room just by looking a little too long. The way she started locking her phone again, even when I was nowhere near it. The way she'd ask, out of nowhere, "Do you trust me?" And I'd respond with something like, "Of course," while keeping my eyes just slightly too blank. This was no longer about catching her. I already had the truth. Now, it was about letting her feel it. The thing no one tells you about being betrayed is that it doesn't feel like a stab. It feels like a slow rearranging of your reality. Like someone moved all your furniture 2 inches to the left while you were asleep. And now you keep bumping into things that used to fit. I was tired of bumping, so I started moving things back. Not to fix what was broken, I wasn't that naive anymore, but to remind myself I still had hands, that I could still act. It started with the bookshelves. She likes her books in color order, like some curated social media post. I moved them back to alphabetical, quietly, one book at a time, every night. On the 4th night, I saw her standing in front of the shelf with her hand on her hip, eyes narrowing. She didn't say a word. I changed the password to the Wi-Fi. When she asked, I acted surprised and blamed the provider. I gave her the new one. But by then, I had already set up a separate guest network and routed it through a VPN. She doesn't know I see her searches now. Doesn't know I saw her look up how to reset an iPhone without passcode at 2:13 a.m. I stopped answering her texts immediately. Delayed my replies just enough to make her wonder. I let silences stretch, let her feel what distance tastes like. When she'd ask where I was, I'd say vague things like out or meeting a guy from work. She never pressed, but I saw it, the flicker of panic behind her eyes. She was losing track of the narrative. The man she thought she could mold wasn't sitting in the mold anymore. One night she came home late, later than usual. Her hair was messy in a way that didn't match the weather, her blouse buttoned wrong at the top. I was on the couch, watching a movie I wasn't even pretending to enjoy. She walked in, bracing, probably expecting questions, suspicion, or even anger. I didn't even turn my head, just asked, "You want leftovers?" like it was any other Tuesday. She paused too long before answering. That's when I knew she was beginning to miss the version of me who didn't know how to stay silent. The next weekend, I asked if she wanted to go upstate for a few days, just us. The cabin we used to rent every fall. She hesitated. Her first instinct was to decline. But I saw her force a smile and say yes. I think she thought I was trying to repair something, that I wanted to hold on to her. But she was wrong. I just wanted to see how long she could fake being in love. The drive up was filled with podcasts and scenic silence. At the cabin, she unpacked too quickly, organized her side of the bed without asking, like someone claiming a space she doesn't trust anymore. I cooked for us. We played cards. We even sat by the fire the second night, sipping red wine and pretending not to notice the weight behind every sentence. Then, sometime after midnight, I asked her, soft, casual, precise, "Do you ever feel like we've both been rehearsing too long for a play we don't even believe in anymore?" She froze, didn't even blink. After a long pause, she said, "Is that how you feel?" I shrugged. "Some days. But I'm not sure it matters." She stared at me for a long time, then looked away. We sat in silence, the fire crackling like it was burning something neither of us had the guts to name. I could almost hear the question screaming inside her head, but she didn't speak. She didn't accuse, because she still didn't know how much I knew. And that ignorance, that quiet, suffocating uncertainty, was the only thing keeping us from exploding. I went to bed before her that night, left her sitting alone in the dark, with nothing but her thoughts and a glass of wine that was starting to taste like blood. We left the cabin early the next morning. She said she had a packed week ahead, and I didn't argue. The ride back was different, tense but not hostile, like two people sitting in a car-shaped tomb of their own making. We didn't listen to music, no podcasts, just the hum of the tires, the occasional sigh, and the mutual agreement that we had both run out of lies. When we got home, she unpacked quickly again, went straight to her laptop, muttering something about needing to respond to emails. I told her I was going for a walk. She nodded without looking up. But I didn't walk. I drove to the townhouse. I didn't go to confront him. I didn't knock on the door. I just sat across the street in the car and watched. It was raining, just a little. The kind of rain that doesn't soak you, just reminds you you're not made of stone. I stared at that door, the one she walked through week after week, and waited for something inside me to ignite. But nothing did. No fury, no collapse, just stillness. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't here to destroy her secret. I was here to bury mine. I drove home, quietly, calmly. And when I walked back in, I didn't go to the bedroom. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and wrote one email to a property manager upstate. A one-bedroom cottage by the river was available for long-term rental. I asked to schedule a visit. Then I packed a small bag. When she finally noticed, she walked in and stared at me like I was a foreign object in the wrong house. "Where are you going?" she asked. I looked up calmly. "To start over." She blinked. "What does that mean?" I smiled. "It means I'm done waiting for you to admit it." For a second, her mouth opened, a protest forming, then she stopped. Because deep down, she knew what I meant. Knew I didn't need to say what she should admit. We'd passed that exit miles ago. I wasn't leaving in rage. I was leaving in peace. And that, somehow, hit harder. She didn't follow me, didn't beg. She just stood there in her perfect little kitchen, surrounded by curated books and color-coded lies, and let me go. I moved into the cottage a week later. It was quiet, small, beautiful in the way that only real things are. I started waking up earlier, walking in the woods, cooking again, writing even. Not about her, not about us, just stories, thoughts, my own voice finally unfiltered. And one morning, I found myself laughing at something stupid, the kettle spitting like it was trying to talk. And I realized I hadn't thought about her in 2 full days. Not once, not her phone, not the cafe, not the man with the practiced smile, just the tea, the fire, the wind. That's how it ends. Not with a bang, not with revenge, just with the sound of your own breathing finally making sense again. I don't know if she ever told him. I don't know if they're still together. I don't need to, because the story doesn't belong to them anymore. It belongs to me, and I'm finally free.